Let me tell you one story about something I learned. Let me tell you one story about something I learned. Yo.
Gonna hit you hard with the fast and the fury. Make your mouth drop like Jordan and Julie. Stepping on the court, dog, arm dangerous. Getting the score like Bobby De Niro. Don't approach us like no Gondoliero. Leave you looking like Eddie Norton. Straw in your word like Marvel Martian. Wanna know why? The God sent we. Call your belly full and your mind empty. All sound alike on BET. How many naked girls do you see? Like Miss Awalad, me can't believe me eyes. Won't stop rocking till the boat capsize. In the holy water, washing off your disguise. Always go back to your dirty pig style. Damn big, you left them hypnotized.
Soldiers dance in the middle of the night, smoking trees and chilling with whites. Fridge got food and the kids shit tight. I got a big dog and him off at night. Soldiers dance in the middle of the night, smoking trees and chilling with whites. Fridge got food and the kids shit tight. I got a big dog and him off at night.
Walk a fine line like a high wire act. Speaking my mind on the way I see rap. Some of y'all spit.
You're listening to the B4evaKool podcast. My name is Rex45. So let's jump right into it. You know, this weekend, MotoGP, World SuperBike, Motor America, all running. And I'm sure there's club races that are running as well. So a crazy week. And, you know, crazy week for me because I'm still settling into my new environment, new weather, which is nice all the time. I have friends that when I was in Boston, you know, I would call and ask them how the weather is. And, you know, they're like, it's Florida, man. You know what it is. It's good weather. So I'm definitely enjoying the weather. Been riding the Multistrada pretty much every day. So it's nice to get out and get some miles in and get a feel again for being on two wheels. Because literally like 3 months, I didn't really ride as much just with, you know, moving stuff and, you know, moving bikes. I got a bike problem and, you know, I have a lot of bikes. Well, might not be a lot to some people, but for me, it's a lot. So, you know, took a few trips to get all the bikes down and stuff like that. So, but I'm excited to be on the bike again, excited for the new season of B4evaKool. I'm looking to go racing in a few weeks at Roebling with CCS. I'm going to bring out the KTM, which, you know, since the last round of CCS that I went to back on Memorial Day, that's how long ago it was, I noticed I had a coolant leak between the head and the block. And so I had to get the engine ripped out, get new seals, all that fun stuff, get the bike back together. I also upgraded the front forks. So I'm looking forward to testing all not the forks, the cartridges. Looking forward to testing all that out in a couple of weeks. And, you know, back, you know, working out a little bit more. So feel not there yet. You know, it's amazing how, you know, the body, you know, falls apart pretty quickly. So, but not there yet. But I'm going to get there. So I'm looking forward to that coming up in the next few weeks, and hopefully, like I said on the last show, to get to Daytona and at the end of the year, because Daytona is always such a fun track to ride on, and I really enjoy it. I won't be running the R6, just be running the KTM, but still a fun track. So looking forward to that. Like I said on the last show, there are a lot of the clubs, especially in the U.S., are you know, the race season is coming to an end on the East Coast side. I don't know about the middle of the country or the West. So you know, it's bittersweet, right? Because you know, you get, if you're fortunate enough, you know, you get a couple of rounds in. If not, you know, you get a whole season in somewhere. So that's always nice. But then, you know, it starts to, you got a couple of rounds left. Like Loudon got one round after this in October. So the season's starting to come to an end. And this is the time where you start to, you know, figure out what you're going to do for next year, right? For some folks, they might be retiring. For other folks, you know, they're getting a new bike. They might be bumping up to a new class. As far as a race license, you might have been an amateur, now you're moving to an expert type of thing. So for a lot of folks, it's going to be different. But the main thing is bike maintenance. Regardless, I think, of whether you have a new bike or the same bike, is bike maintenance. And I find that the sooner I get my bike serviced after a race season is over, the better it is. One, you get the whatever you're doing, suspension, whatever, you get to those guys quicker. Because as like if you're trying to run next year, and your bike isn't ready by February, it's going to be really hard to get that done, because a lot of folks are going to start to get busy again for the season. So get your service done on the bike, get your suspension done. If you're doing your brakes or whatever you're rebuilding, whatever you're getting, whatever, try to do that on the sooner side after the season. So then all you gotta do is worry about being in shape. If you're going to do a livery on your bike, figure out what colors you're going to do or whatever the case may be, that type of thing. But at least the maintenance is done, and then your bike is just you're ready for the next season, that type of thing. So that's my 2 cents as far as, what happens when the season obviously, for some folks, including myself, money's a thing. So, that might make it a little bit harder. But, I find that now getting stuff done right after the season is over, my bike's all set. I'm ready to go for the next season. All I gotta do is worry about my being in shape, and that's it. So that's the 2 cents on preparing for next season. Now for some folks, and I was up early watching MotoGP, watching the practice, watching all that. So there's a lot to talk about there. So let's jump down into, we talk about the top 5 finishers in Moto3. You got Munoz. Nope. You got Viager. I'm probably jacking that up. I apologize. He finished 5th. Liquid Moly, Husqvarna team. Munoz, he finished 4th. Anchu finished 3rd. Mesa finished 2nd. And Alonso, he won the Moto3 race. I think he's won 3 out of 4 races already. Pretty impressive for a rookie. Pedro-esque. It has to be a shock on the system when you see a rookie comes up and start just dominating the scene. For these other riders, especially some of these older riders that's been in Moto3 for a while, I gotta assume some of them are kind of feeling the pressure a little bit, because I would. For sure, I would, definitely a little bit. Exciting race. I'll probably watch like tricycle racing if there was nothing else on. But Moto3 is one of those classes that there's not a lot of power on the bike, so it's all about the corner speed, and it's all about full gas all the time. And these young riders, they're laying it all on the line. I think at all levels they do. But, these guys are trying to make a name for themselves. They're trying to get up into Moto2, maybe MotoGP. And, there's a small percentage of riders go from, Moto3 to MotoGP. In the last few years, it seems like all of them do. But, there's a few. And especially where MotoGP is right now, the talent level, it's hard to really say, hey, I'm going to get rid of this guy because, I'm going to bring in a new person. So, Moto3 is always fun to watch. And, we'll see what happens with Alonso, because, like I said, he's a young kid, pretty impressive. And Jeremy Masia, same thing, but he's going to Moto2 next year, so I which is good for him, because you look at John McPhee, who aged out of Moto3. So some of these riders, if they, it's like they can spend 5-6 years in Moto3, but after 27, you got to go on to greener pastures, whether Moto2 or elsewhere. So it's very cutthroat. So that's the Moto3 top 5 finishers. Let's talk about Moto2, which you would think it's a runaway with Pedro, but Celestino Vietti, he pushed Pedro, until he had it was an awesome save. I think him and Tony Albolino, they had two really cool. They saved it would have been gone for me. I mean, it would have been gone. You know what I mean? And they saved the crash, but I think he didn't have enough. But still, it's nice to see Celestine riding again. Because like last year, he beginning of the season he was all right. Then halfway through the season, I don't know if it's because of the change in teams. That kind of knocked his spirit. It's kind of tough with riders. I mean, we all go through bad patches, right? You have years where you're struggling trying to get everything right. And so it's nice to see him at least, if not winning the race, finishing in top two and running at the front. Last week he didn't finish as well, but and he won the round before. So it's nice to see that finish. Same thing with Lopez, right? He's on the podium as well. These guys all season, they've been strong here and there, but not consistent. So it's nice to see these guys. You got Tony Albolino, who he finished fourth, and Ayaguro finished fifth in the series. And this Moto 2 round, it was kind of similar to like MotoGP. The riders out front, they broke away, and there was a gap, and it was kind of, not to say it wasn't fun to watch, but it's nicer when when there's a fight, right? It's always nicer. So I was rooting for Vieite to give Pedro more of a challenge. One, to make it entertaining for me who's watching. But also, they want to compete. But again, it's at that level. It's the slightest little thing is the difference. I mean, all these guys are fast. But nonetheless, that is the top five for Moto 2. And let's move into MotoGP, which for those, I'm pretty sure if you're a fan of motorcycle racing, you've already you know what's going on. So we'll talk about the top five there. Vinales finished fifth, and I'm happy for him for running in the top five, running it again, because here's a guy that's been on three different manufacturers. He's yet to win on Aprilia, so hopefully he'll get his due. But at least he's like the kid was always fast from Suzuki, Yamaha. Unfortunately, Yamaha going through what they're going through right now, and he had a horrible breakup, right? And so who knows? There's a lot of riders that have horrible breakups and they're out of MotoGP. We can there's a bunch. I'm not going to call those guys out, but there's a bunch. So for him to be able to go to Aprilia and now he's starting to come into his own. It's great for them to finish 1-2 last week. Amazing for Aprilia, right? Nice to see that they're up there. So definitely happy for Vinales. Then you got Danny Pedrosa, who's retired. I think he was he's won over 150 races when he was in MotoGP as a full-time rider. He signed to KTM, test rider, wild card. He finished fourth yesterday, finished fourth today. 37 years old. Amazing. If you don't know who he is, definitely go look him up. Watch some old races. He's one of those guys that just had, just some unfortunate, situations happen. Like Oliveira or Anea Bastianini, right? Just getting taken out by other riders and then being hurt. But, in his case, he was, he there's at least 3 championships that he could have won that he was taken out by other riders and injured and just bad luck. But he's a good rider. He's definitely changed the KTM program along with Jack Miller. Jack Miller is the icing on the cake that put KTM now in the top 5. But Danny Pedrosa, was good to see him run. Maybe Rossi, one of these guys, will come out and say, hey, give me a shot. Maybe I think Kyle Crutchlow is going to come out and do a wild card as well. So it's nice to see these older riders come back and ride, and especially, hey, listen, when you finish fourth over all these other guys, and you haven't raced in 5-6 years consistently. That's pretty amazing. I mean, so imagine if this guy, had like 2 or 3 races under his belt and on that KTM where he could be. But it was nice to see him. Number 3 is Pecco Bagnaia. He finished third. Riding wounded. The last round he got ran over by Brad Bender after he high-sided, and so he's been limping all week. And to see him get third and be injured is pretty amazing. You know what I mean? Because I know what it's like to be run over, so that's happened to me. I also know what it's like to ride, and not be fully healed. And it takes a lot. And I'm not doing anywhere close to the riding that these guys are doing. So and it's a struggle. It was a struggle for me. So to do 20-something laps and to be in that much pain and to finish on the box is pretty amazing. So shout out to Pecco Bagnaia for that. Finished third, leading the championship right now. Then you got Bezzecchi, another guy who got jacked up, the week before as well, taken out by Bastianini, and again riding wounded, and finished second and gave the first place guy Jorge Martin a push until he probably just the pain was just too much. He also had a few mistakes as well, and he brought it home to second place. He's third in the championship, and again amazing. And he's on a 2022 Ducati as well. And to see this guy, the both of them, Pecco and Bezzecchi, ride like that is pretty amazing. And it reminds me of like Lorenzo back in the day when he broke his collarbone and had surgery and came back and rode and finished 5th in the champion in the race. So that says a lot. It's certain athletes. Certain athletes, I'm not going to pick sports or whatever, certain human beings, I should say, have a higher tolerance of pain than others, because, it sounds pretty bad for Pecco, and to be able to go out there and do that, and like I said, finish third, fought off Danny Pedrosa in the towards the end, it is amazing. So, and then in first place, guys, Jorge Martin. He's second in the championship. He got pole position. He won yesterday. He won today in the sprint race and in the main race. What can we say about it? Oh, I mean, there's a few things. It's good to see him riding again. Well, I hope it continues. He struggled for a little bit on the GP23, so it's nice to see that it's coming together. If it sticks, I think Pecco has a problem. But Pecco finishing third and injured gives you hope for a healthy guy. So hopefully, he come back healthy. But the championship is nice where you got Bezzecchi, you got Jorge Martin, and you got Pecco, which any one of those 3 guys could win the championship. I mean, obviously there's other people as well. So I'm not going to say they're the top 3 because you never know what can happen. Injury here, injury there, guy all of a sudden starts to feel good, and it's a wrap. So it is. I'll tell you how many more rounds are left because there's still a lot of racing that's going to go on. So I think you got 2 weeks off. Then they're going to be in India, and they're going to be in Japan after that. Motegi from MotoGP game. That's one of my favorite tracks. They're going to be in Indonesia after that. Then Australia, then you got the Thai Grand Prix, then you got the Malaysian Grand Prix, then you got Qatar, and then you got Valencia. So you got 8 rounds left. So that's all. It's 200 points to gain for any rider. So the season is still. I mean, I think anyone that's 100 points away is still a good shot of winning this thing. If they can, get other manufacturers. I think Ducati kind of have it figured out, but I think some of these other manufacturers, the KTM and Aprilia, I don't think Honda and Yamaha are going to get there this year. But you never know what can happen, right? I'm not going to say never, but you never know what can happen. But I think that with Bender, Zarco. Vinales. You never know what can happen. You never know what can happen. So I'm looking forward to all these races that are coming up. MotoGP is crazy. The only downside is, I'm up early watching races live and stuff like that. But, there's worse things in life that can be happening. So let's move over to World Superbike. Happening the same time. I believe it was in France. I like to be accurate, so I guess I will let you verify that. I have to say even that series, you'd have thought that Alvaro Batista would have ran away with it, but he isn't. And you got Top Rock coming in there, and he won 2 out of the 3 races over the weekend, and so and then only gave up 5 points in the last race earlier today. So that championship is wide open, and what amazing. Amazing to watch. You see these guys. You see Top Rock. Sliding into corners. I can watch anything, but it was a great weekend to watch. Unfortunately, Alvaro had issues and ran into Rinaldi, took him out in one race in the sprint race, Super Pole race. And so I think he finished like 10th or something like that. So he gave us some points there. But and I think on race 1, he must have had a mechanical of sorts that sorted out, and also didn't finish on the podium there. But Yamaha, Top Rock took advantage of that, and got away with 2 wins out of 3, and that's not too bad. And he's not that far down in the championship, so pretty wild. And in Super Sport, shout out to Johnson Ray as well for. That man is working that. Before I get into Super Sport, that man is working that Kawasaki. He's I don't want to say he's like Quartararo on the Yamaha, but he's definitely have to override that bike to even get where he's getting, and the skill level he has, it shows. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when he jumps on a Yamaha next year and starts to slide that bike around for next season. Garrett Gerloff is another person to shout out as well, because he's starting to come into his own on that BMW and running really well. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's only one more round left of World Superbike, but it is what it is. Still a whole bunch of fun to watch, and I'm looking forward to the last round. And there you have it. My name is Rex45. It's the B4evaKool podcast. Peace.